Okay, so today's emotion and color is green. Green represents wealth and abundance as well as happiness. So,
and then he realizes
there
that
we
the assailant must still be there because they haven't been away very long. He grabs up a knife, sees Chuck Riley hiding, and advances on him with the knife. "I'll kill you, you bastard," he says.
And he went to attack Chuck, who then shot him.
Chuck has the gun with him in a paper bag. He pulls it out and fires the gun from inside the paper bag. 4 shots. The pattern of the bullet is very close. Chuck was kind of proud of this afterwards as a marksman.
Marlene Olive, though she didn't want her father killed, she didn't panic or immediately get upset because he was killed.
This is the situation that young murderers rarely prepare for. It is a difficult problem because bodies are much harder to get rid of than teenagers realize. Marlene is the organizer. She's quite a bit younger than Chuck, but she is the one in charge here. Marlene the witch. She decides that they're going to try and get rid of the blood. Very difficult. A lot of blood. They even scrubbed the bedroom, scrubbed the walls.
The 2 of them wrapped those corpses up in some rugs.
Then Chuck says, "Well, where are we going to put them?" And Marlene says, "The China camp." The China camp was a sort of mystical kind of place where teenagers went for barbecues and drugs.
And they soaked them with gasoline and burned the corpses.
Marlene showed very little remorse. Marlene went about her day. She had sex with her boyfriend right after. So in a sense, she was manipulating him even after the event. So she kept him close through the manipulation of a sexual relationship. There's something very conniving about Marlene. Marlene strikes me as a very, very troubled young woman.
It seems as if Marlene and Chuck have gotten away with a grisly double murder.
An early morning hunter spots the smoke and phones the fire department thinking it's a brush fire. 2 firemen come out and conclude, looking at the bones, that somebody was burning a deer. They go back to the station and report it's nothing much, just a deer being burned, and one of the other firemen says, "Not likely, more likely a body." But they don't do anything about it. They don't go back and look, they just leave it. It's actually a week before the murder is discovered.
A few days after the murders, a business associate of Jim Olive wondered how come Jim had not come into work or even called in to say why he hadn't come into work.
He finally, after a week, comes around to the house, looks in the window, sees all the disarray, and phones the police. Blood. She tells other stories, none of them very credible.
Alarmed by Marlene's strange account, Detective Bart Stinson decides to have her admitted to Marin General Hospital for psychiatric evaluation. In the meantime, he goes back to 353 Hibiscus Way. Inspecting each of the rooms, he notices that one of them has been thoroughly cleaned and scrubbed. Then, on the carpet, he spots some tiny red particles. Stinson has enough experience to recognize it's coagulated blood. Back at the station, Marlene, now diagnosed sane, is questioned again.
She changed her story and she said, "My father killed my mother and then fled." And then she said, "No, my mother killed my father and then fled."
The police also talked to one of Marlene's friends, Deanna Krieger. Deanna, too, has a strange tale to tell. About a week earlier, Marlene had asked her to come by to help clean the house. There was blood all over the place. And when they finished, she, Marlene, and Chuck Riley made love together, right in Marlene's mother's bed. Marlene just has a way of making you do things, she says. The police decide they need to talk with Marlene one more time.
And then finally she told the truth, and she led them to that pit where the burned bodies were discovered.
She tried to justify what happened based on the way she was treated and the relationship with the mother.
She told the whole story, and she told
What we're watching on
that her older
TV
boyfriend,
today
Chuck
is
Riley,
Killer Kids.
had actually, committed the murders firsthand.
We've seen this, again around the world, that girls and women have manipulated boys and men to do the dirty work for them. But they're still as guilty as their partner for the event.
The double murder in Marin County hits the national headlines. The press dub it the barbecue murders.
That's horrible.
They were
The
tried
barbecue
separately.
murders. It's awful.
Chuck was tried in adult court and got death and reduced to life in prison, and he's still there.
The jury has found him guilty as charged.
The jury comes down hard on Chuck Riley. Marlene fares much better.
She originally was a juvenile.
She pled guilty as a juvenile, which meant that the maximum sentence she could be given was less than 4 years.
Had she been an adult, she would still be in prison.
She was going to be released in just a few weeks when she escaped. She made her way to New York, and she fulfilled the prophecy of her adoptive mother by becoming a prostitute.
I know she got in some trouble. She went to Southern California. She got in some trouble there. There were allegations of prostitution, and she got jailed, and I kind of lost track of her at that point.
Marlene, from what I can discover, there's no news that she's made a new start. And Chuck, well, Chuck is still in prison.
She visited Chuck one time in 1980, and it was a kind of awkward reunion at the prison. Chuck said to somebody after she left, "I'll never hear from her again," and he never has.
What teenage boy doesn't dream of saving a beautiful young lady? What they don't tell you is that sometimes the hero ends up replacing the lady in the dungeon forever.
Teenagers adopting Satanism, becoming more and more aggressive.
He began exhibiting signs of being a sociopath.
I dug up Teresa Simmons' body with my bare hands. Sean Sellers was a practicing Satanist.
There is actually no defense called possession by a demon.
January 11th, 1988. Just outside Atlanta, Georgia, two teenagers are on the run. 17-year-old Melissa Ernest and 15-year-old Teresa Simmons have snuck away from the Cobb Douglas Health Facility, a home for troubled youth. It's not the first time.
Melissa Ernest's life was one that had a lot of court involvement in the juvenile court setting. She'd made allegations against her father. She had claimed to have been abused.
Melissa Ernst ran away several times from her home and was taken in by the police. Teresa Simmons likewise was from a troubled family that was drinking in the house, and she would run away.
Those two girls decided they weren't happy living in the group home, and they didn't like the rules that were in place at the group home. They had gone outside to smoke, and the mother of the group home missed them and went outside, and they were gone, and she went back to their bedroom, and they'd left a note saying they were leaving, and they were hitchhiking toward Atlanta.
The teens are hoping to make it all the way to California, but bad weather threatens to spoil their plans until a driver honks his
Our
horn
foundation
and
set.
on the left.
And he ultimately made arrangements to meet with them, and they needed a place to stay.
It's late by the time they pull up to 4500 Mason Creek Road. It looks dark and deserted, but as Greg pulls in, a light goes on. It's a big, dilapidated farmhouse on the outskirts of Douglasville, an Atlanta suburb. A strange figure comes to the door. It's Terry Belcher, wrapped in a blanket. He doesn't have a lot to say. Greg has to take off, so he leaves them with Terry.
As the girls got out of the car, I said, let's not talk too much. Go and have a good sleep. We'll talk to you.
Terry tells the girls to be quiet. His friend Bobby McIntyre is sleeping in the living room, and his grandmother is asleep upstairs.
Next morning, the two girls were waking up by music of Ozzy Osbourne.
The two girls have no choice but to meet Terry Belcher and his friend Bobby McIntyre downstairs.
The two guys were in the kitchen drinking beer and coke, and there was a big loaf of bread with butter and some cold cuts on the table. Said, help yourself.
The young men barely seem to notice the girls.
In the meantime, the grandmother passed, just looking at the two girls, saying, who are those girls? Well, they're just staying over for you for a night or two. Okay. And she left.
With his grandmother gone, Terry Belcher launches into a monologue about the power of Satan. He's fascinated by the idea of black magic and by the heavy metal bands whose music, he says, demonstrates their allegiance to the Prince of Darkness.
One of the things that she mentioned during the breakfast is that I heard that you are interested in occultism. If you want to be introduced in those things, you will have to pay the price.
Once they hooked up with these boys, Teresa Simons very quickly figured out that there was something horribly wrong about the things they were saying. They were recruiting them into the satanic group. However, Melissa, she seems to have immediately bonded with them.
Teresa Simmons did not wish to participate in the lifestyle that the other three wanted to. The other three wanted to have sex, wanted to do things that she didn't want to do.
Teresa asked Melissa to come with her to the room because she wanted to talk to them. And she asked her really to leave. She doesn't want to stay. She's afraid. She doesn't want to go to bed with this guy.
We have like a free bed, free food, and the guys are so nice.
After the strict youth center, Melissa likes everything about this house, especially Terry Belcher. But Teresa is feeling more and more scared.
I cannot see out of my left eye.
Melissa promises Teresa things will be fine.
Oh, that's a little better. Okay. That's a lot better. Sorry, guys.
My turn. My bag of chips. Your turn.
I think we have different definitions of sharing.
Bring it up.
Travels across the country. I came across this house with water dripping from the ceiling. You never know when something like this will happen. So let the guy from insurance agency help you with homeowner's insurance and protect yourself from things like fire, theft, or in this case, water damage. Now, if I had to guess, I'd say somewhere upstairs there's a broken pipe.
Let the Geico Insurance Agency help you with homeowners insurance. Call today to see how much you could save.
Melissa ends up alone with Terry. He tells her he's got a dark secret. Not long ago, a friend, a kind of priestess, initiated him into the world of occult ritual, from the Satanic Bible to animal sacrifice.
Mr. Belcher had a small core group between 7 and 10, which was about the size of the group on any given occasion. They would meet and they would capture small animals where they would mutilate the animal as part of satanic worship.
The satanic mentality as one of its foundational beliefs that the more you render unto Satan in rituals and sacrifice, the more power and sex and drugs you will get in this world.
Young and fascinated, Melissa falls under Terry's dark spell. And when they make love, he tells her she's now a member of his coven.
From now on, you're initiated, you're one of ours, and nobody has the right to touch you from now on.
In just a short time, Melissa has become infatuated with the occult and a new boyfriend. But Teresa has no interest in the dark thrills of this house.
Bobby McIntyre tried to have sex with Teresa Simmons, and she refused him.
She's afraid, yes. She's a virgin.
With this information, the teens get an idea, a satanic plan, taken to a startling extreme.
So that's why
A human sacrifice to the devil.
this is the only reason. The glory of Satan would be a newborn child. The second one would be a virgin.
The virginity of Teresa is an opportunity for the young Satanists.
Melissa offered to kill her own friend, whom she considered as her little sister. For Satan, and she's a virgin. The fact that she mentioned her virginity was really signing her death warrant for the sacrifice for Satan.
What we call team killers. It really depends on the makeup of the group as to the emotional dynamic. More often than not, you'll have a leader who can manipulate the followers into doing things, and they have enough charisma or they scare the others enough to get them to do these things.
In the following days, Melissa gets more and more fascinated by Terry's dark appeal, and Teresa feels more and more isolated. She even thinks about leaving a few times, with or without Melissa.
Teresa Simons called back to a friend and said that these boys were scary and that she was going to return to the foster home. That's the last time anyone heard from her.
On January 17, 1988, the young Satanists prepare their ritual, death by strangulation. A chance, they believe, to tap directly into Satan's dark power. Melissa offers to do it herself. Early in the evening, Melissa brings Teresa some hot chocolate. What her friend doesn't know is that she has swiped it with one of Terry's grandmother's sleeping pills.